if we didn't hire any junior engineers, like how do we get to senior engineers? You don't come out of college as a senior engineer, right? The most recent survey that we ran, we had about 90% of our participants saying that yes, they use AI at work professionally. 30% of our survey respondents said that they trusted AI a little or not at all. The almost immediate result we should expect is a dip in productivity. Productivity usually goes down when you try something new.
Welcome back to Bits and Bolts, and today I have a special person with us, Nathen Harvey, head of DORA in Google. Not DORA the Explorer, the typical say, but DORA from Google, and a lot of stuff connected with it. And I think more official title of you than head of DORA, it's Developer Relations Engineer at Google Cloud and lead for DORA team.
That's
The
correct.
research
Yep.
group behind some of the most influential studies on DevOps and software delivery performance. And as we know, DORA has a very long history in DevOps / platform / DevX / whatever, AI and so on, whatever you put under it currently, what is on the base, what is hot right now. We
Yes.
go with the new title. But great having you. How else would... Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's really good to be here. Thank you so much. And yeah, I think you've covered DORA well. It's this research program that's been running for over a decade. We have always had a center of gravity around software delivery performance. And we know that the way that you improve software delivery performance goes by many different names, and there are certainly many different practices and capabilities that you bring to that craft. In the past, we've called it DevOps. In fact, DORA started as an acronym for DevOps Research and Assessment. We've de-acronymed the name, so it just means DORA now. And that's in part to reflect that we are more than just DevOps. As you mentioned, we look at developer experience, we look at platform engineering, and of course, over the last few years, we've been looking very deeply into AI. And so in the last few months, we've actually published 3 reports around AI. In September of 2025, we published the State of AI-Assisted Software Development. And then in December, the DORA AI Capabilities Model. And then in April, the ROI of AI-Assisted Software Development. And throughout that time period, we're also always releasing research insights. In fact, just yesterday, we released a research insight about this new kind of trend and practice of having token leaderboards and token maxing within organizations. Sort of the pros and cons of having those token leaderboards and what sort of behaviors they might incentivize and how you might want to be careful about.
Yeah, I think coming out with very interesting stuff, as we are very fresh to like Copilot changing into pricing. And as I can see, I primarily work as a consultant. I can see a lot of organizations getting suddenly focused, from, let's do everything with AI. Now, we need to be cost optimized, and we need to be aware how to use it. And, developers are starting to find the shortcuts, how to get more out of the limits they have. And you have a lot of open source tools which try to, get you more or like get your prompt to use less tokens and so on. So I think it's very hot topic right now, FinOps or AI FinOps, however, is a new name for it.
Yes. Yes. I think it's really interesting because, of course, there are real cost concerns that are coming into play. But I also think that we're still at such an early stage of understanding how to best utilize AI within the software development lifecycle and, frankly, across all parts of our organizations. So I think this is still a time where we want to enable heavy experimentation and learning. But we have to make sure that as we're learning things, we're sharing those within our organizations, with each other, so that we can get the best out of this. And as always happens with a new technology, the cost optimization concerns come just before you want them, right? We'd much rather still have open, sort of free reign to continue to experiment. It does make some sense that these cost optimization concerns are coming in, but it is also very difficult or worrisome that you might over-index on cost and forget that the reason we have these tools is to deliver extra value, more value to our customers, which in turn brings more value to our businesses.
Yeah, so sometimes instead of putting a break, we tend to put the break too early, as you mentioned, and I see it a lot as well. That okay, I can be super performing over 2 days or 3 days a week, but then I'm waiting till my window or till my tokens renew because the organization doesn't give me more, and you have to do or other work or you need to do more manual work instead, and you are not delivering as much as you could. So I'm not so you have personal cost versus tool cost, which is here, and because you pay your employees anyway if they're using AI or if they're not using AI.
Right.
And taking a bit step back for people who are maybe living under the rock and didn't really looked into DORA much. You mentioned that you're covering software delivery. Primarily, anything else what should be added for people who are maybe or new to industry or not very into more research part of it?
Yeah, for sure. So I mentioned that DORA has this center of gravity around software delivery performance, and this is sort of the area where we focus. And a lot of people have heard of the DORA metrics, and those DORA metrics really are software delivery performance metrics. So I'll talk a little bit about those and why we focus on software delivery performance. In many organizations, certainly when the research started and probably still today, there is a lot of emphasis on building things very, very quickly. And AI certainly helps with this. And building is fun and it is a good activity to do. But the reality is, once you've built something, you then have to ship it and get it in the hands of customers. And that oftentimes is a process that is not super easy. In many organizations, it's full of friction and potentially handoffs from one part of the organization to another as it makes its way into production. And then once it lands in production, you get that first user feedback on the thing that you've built. And for better and for worse, it almost always is the case that once you give something to customers, their nearly immediate responses, let's change it a little bit. It's great to build things, but the reality is with software in particular, we're never done. We're always changing it, always looking for new features that we want to add, new ways to serve our customers, and frankly, the customers of our applications are finding new ways to use them, ways that we didn't even think of or imagine as we shipped those. So it is really important as an organization to be able to ship software, ship change, both fast and safe. And that's where the software delivery metrics come in. They give you a way to assess how well are we doing. And so we measure these software delivery performance metrics at the level of an application or service, not at the level of an organization. That's too high, and certainly not at the level of an individual. Think of it more as a team or a particular application. But when it comes to these metrics, there are 5 metrics that we look at that look across 2 different factors: throughput and stability. We really want to understand how fast can you get changes through the system and how stable are those changes when you ship them. Now, historically, we tend to think of these 2 things as trade-offs of one another. I can either be fast or stable, but what our data shows over more than a decade is that that's simply not the case. These 2 factors tend to move together. You're either fast and stable, or you're slow and unstable. So that's kind of where the software delivery performance really fits in. I'll give you the name of the 5 metrics, and then I'll take a quick break and see if there are follow-up questions that you have there, Paulina. So the 5 metrics, on the throughput side, we have deployment frequency, change lead time, and your failed deployment recovery time. And on the stability side, we have your change fail rate and your deployment rework rate. These taken together can be used to measure any type of software that you're delivering. And the goal really is to improve over time. We want to understand how we're doing right now, and then what changes can we make to improve those metrics over time.
I think one question for later I have you how do you measure it correctly? Because I've seen DORA metrics so many times measured incorrectly in the organizations, and that they focus on tools instead of on the culture more and on the metrics itself.
Yes. Yeah. This is a real challenge. And like you said, there are lots of ways to get it wrong. One way to get it wrong I talked about is to measure at an organizational level. I work at Google. We don't ask the question, how frequently does Google deploy to production? We know that number is a large number, like it happens very frequently, but that doesn't actually tell us anything. It doesn't give us any good signal for where we might want to go and improve. And that's probably true at just about any organization. Yeah, I rarely run into an organization where they have one application, right? It really is better to measure these at the level of an application or service. And then when it comes to an application or service, what is that actually like? How do you describe the boundaries of that, especially with many applications running as microservices, right? So an application might be made up of multiple different services. The guidance I tend to give is think about the deployable artifacts you have. So if you're deploying a container into production, that container and everything that goes into that container becomes the application that you're measuring. And then the next challenge that you run into, as you mentioned, is the tools. How do you measure these software delivery performance metrics with tools? Well, DORA itself primarily gathers data through a large annual survey that we run. And, we definitely get a lot of pushback on that. A survey, well, that's like just people's opinion. That's not real. And I can go and look in my systems and count the number of deployments that have happened. I can get real telemetry from our systems. And that's true. You totally can within your organization. But as a global research program, no organization lets us just sort of plug into their telemetry and pull all of that data. So we can't do that, which is why, in part, why we rely on surveys. But the reality is, a survey is actually a pretty good way when you have a well formed survey with good questions. It's a very good way to get a quick sense on how teams are going. And remember, the thing that matters less here is precision. Is our change lead time 4 hours and 15 minutes, or is it 4 hours and 7 minutes? The difference doesn't really matter. The idea here is, of course, that you want to improve those metrics. We have to think not about the precision of the metrics, but rather what are we going to change in order to improve those? Now, all of that said, you can certainly go and hook in telemetry and build dashboards that are fed by real data. And I put that in scare quotes because, of course, surveys are real data. They help us encapsulate sort of the lived experience of the people on our team, which is definitely important. So there are open source and commercial tools that can help you with that. The only challenge that I would watch out for with using tools to capture these metrics is, as I mentioned, you can capture them very quickly and very cheaply just by asking people on your team, just by running a survey. You can get real insights immediately. The challenge with tools is that you may spend a lot of time integrating tools and integrating systems together to get a very precise dashboard. But across that time, maybe you've not made any improvements. It's much better to improve the practices and the ways that you're shipping software than it is to get more precise about the measurements of software. So, like with so many things in engineering, there is a bit of a trade off here. At some point, you might want higher precision, better insight into those measures. That's a good time to bring in the tools. But I would recommend that you start with a conversation. Start with a conversation or a survey within your team. On Dora.dev, we actually have a quick check at Dora.dev/quick check that will essentially tell you exactly where you stand in terms of your software delivery performance and give you an opportunity to compare that to our data set.
To be honest, I tried it with one of the previous projects I work with, to being able to run the survey across each team, each development team, and so on. And developers very eager to do it, very eager to see the results and get the improvements. But where the blocker was, it was management actually, to being able, no, we are stable, we release every few months, and we are good with it. We don't want to do it more often.
Yes, that can be a challenge. I mean, I think that this is kind of the case with almost any improvement effort that a team wants to make, there will always be resistance. That, you know what, we're good enough. We're very happy with the way things are working. There's the reality is that there's always room for improvement in every process that we have. And it does take some convincing and some buy-in, both from executives or leadership within the team, but also, of course, from the practitioners, the people that are actually doing the work. They have to be bought in. Now, I oftentimes see that misalignment happening, just as you described, where the practitioners want to ship more frequently. They know that they can, they know the right capabilities and the technologies to bring to bear to make that possible, and leadership maybe gets scared of that. I've also seen, of course, the opposite, where the leaders maybe uh, almost blind to the context and the current friction, just demand faster shipments, more frequent deployments, and they almost demand that without any consideration for what is preventing it today, and without giving room or capacity to actually go and make those improvements. So it can definitely go both ways.
Yeah, I also seen a business pushing for new features without really looking into stability. But unless you're stable, your customer won't be happy because stuff which you ship doesn't work and so on, as we talked about.
Yes, that's right. I often say that your customer cares more that the feature you've already shipped works than they care about the next feature that you're going to ship, right? They want to be able to rely on and trust the capabilities that your application provides. That's what keeps them coming back. And then you can delight them with new features.
Exactly. They don't want to be able to look into it all the time that it doesn't work and fix it all the time. None of us like to have our tools which we pay for on fire.
That's right.
You jump a lot over AI over 2025 and 2026, and one of the interesting points you mention is that the gap between individual productivity and a team performance. The developers might feel faster individually, but the deployment's instability and operation complexity can still increase even by using an implementation with AI. Why does it happen?
Yeah, we talk about AI as kind of an amplifier of the systems that you have within your organization. And that means that it amplifies both the good and the bad parts of your systems. And we are seeing, one of the things that we look at is how is AI adoption going across the industry? And what we found there is that it's nearly universal. The most recent survey that we ran, we had about 90% of our participants saying that yes, they use AI at work professionally. At the same time, those individuals report feeling much more productive when they're using AI. So it is increasing their individual productivity, at least their sense of productivity, right? Self reported sense of productivity. I feel much better. But when we look at a larger system level metric, like you mentioned, software delivery instability, this is a measure of how frequently, when we push out a change, do we have to immediately roll back that change or push forward a hot fix? That's not good. We don't want to have to do that a lot. Software delivery instability is also measured by deployment rework rate, which is a measure of how frequently are you doing deployments that weren't planned. And, when you do something, none of us plan to go back and do it again, to have to rework it. And that's also, it's not very fun. It's better to get it as close to right as possible the first time so that it works. So what we're also seeing as you increase AI adoption is that actually that software delivery instability is increasing as well. So I feel more productive. Maybe my role is to build new features, to write new code, and AI helps me feel really productive in that. But software delivery instability, we're rolling back more changes. We're having to redo more deployments. So that's not going so well. And I think that this really is an indicator that we have to think about the entire system. Another thing that we're seeing, or that we have seen in the past, is that one of the big friction points of getting a change from the developer all the way through to production is the review process. And in that review process, we have other humans looking at the changes, approving those changes, giving feedback on those changes, and so forth. Well, with AI, we're able to write so much more code in a shorter amount of time. So we've really scaled the level of output, but we haven't necessarily as a team scaled our capacity for review. And so we pay this additional verification tax. We have to look at the code that was generated by AI and decide, is this good code? Does it follow our standards? Is it something that we're confident that we can ship to production? And that's causing some real issues.
I think I've seen some metrics. I think Patrick Debois on one of the talks was mentioning that, the context, the focus changed. So, okay, we are generating code faster, but how much time we spend on the review increasing drastically. And I see the same in any organization or in any projects, for example, even I'm involved, and how much more time we suddenly spend on the review because you can generate much more code in much shorter time. So this is getting faster, but you question, how reliable can you be on AI? How good structure of, your guardrails for AI are and so on. And so suddenly how much time you spend on the review or someone in your team to spend on the review or even having AI review and reviewing what AI reviewed already, it's getting much longer. So I see much more time, spending on the review, on the testing process, and so on.
Yeah, for sure. And this is one of those things, I talked about those software delivery metrics. If you want to improve them, we have to think about the capabilities that enable them. One of those capabilities that enables them is the ability to get fast feedback on your changes, whether that's through code reviews or through automated tests or what have you. And so maybe a better leverage of AI, as you mentioned there, is using AI in the code review process because maybe it can do faster code reviews than a human can. And I wouldn't recommend replacing all of your humans in the code review, but let AI have the first pass or maybe the first two passes through that code. It can give much faster feedback than a human can, right? Because our humans are busy writing other features or working on other tasks. They only have so much capacity for code review. The AI agents can come in and do that for us. And likewise, you can use the AI to help you build better test infrastructure, build better automated tests. Maybe you find the places in your system where you've underinvested and use AI to help bring those investments up to par, right? Improve your automated feedback, improve your test coverage, improve the validity of those tests. More important than the coverage, but the confidence signals that you can build with those tests.
Yeah, or also automate certain stuff which you have to done manually. Go and create Jira ticket for each workflow or each change you have, so your product owner and anyone above, who is happy. Or, some stuff which can be easily done, but can increase because another come with coming in AI into process of the software development, we have cognitive overload.
Yes.
Uh, and that's the context switching gets even faster. And, I know the PRs, which are, 20 lines of changing of code used to be rarity. Right now, I see it more and more often and going through it, 100 files changes on the feature instead of so getting, 1,000 or 2,000 max. And reviewing it without help of AI, it's getting a challenge. So if you generate something with AI and you don't get AI in other parts of it, you're getting less and less productive with it, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is one of the things that we saw in DORA as well. I mentioned that we saw nearly universal adoption of AI, but the outcomes that teams are able to achieve are highly varied. So some teams are able to ship software much faster and safer. They have higher product performance. More importantly, or at least as importantly, they have better well-being for the people on their team, which is measures around things like burnout and job satisfaction. Whereas other people, they use more AI, and it's getting worse. Like, there is burnout on the team, product performance is suffering, software delivery performance is suffering. And this is a really interesting challenge. How do we identify the good practices with AI and help those teams that are struggling? And that's what led us to develop the DORA AI capabilities model. These are 7 different capabilities that we see in our data that when teams have them, their investments in adopting AI actually flow all the way through to those outcomes that you care about, like product performance and code quality and well-being for the people on your team. And so we identified 7 different capabilities. One of the capabilities touches on exactly what you were just talking about there, Paulina, that capability is working in smaller batches. When we ship small changes, it's much easier to reason about those changes. It's much easier to review those changes. If something goes wrong, they cause a smaller incident or they have a smaller impact on customers. They're easier to roll back. So there's a lot of benefits to working in small batches. AI almost fights against that, right? AI wants to generate lots and lots of change all in one prompt, but it's better for AI. It solves a problem better if we give it a smaller problem. It's certainly better for the humans in our system to review smaller changes and compensate for those when they go wrong. So if we can get to a place where we're always working on lots of small changes, that's certainly better than having big changes that we go through. A big change represents a lot of risk. A small change represents a little bit of risk, and a little bit of risk is where we learn.
Yeah, we go. That's pretty much we're going back, to principles of CA/CD and DevOps: ship often, ship fast, ship small.
That's
So,
right.
and even with whole AI, it doesn't really change. And yeah, so the baseline pretty much as we can see is staying the same. And you also need to look into processes, tools, and people, even with AI. And also it seems that AI works better if your whole organization on all the levels is more mature and uh, more established, because when you have, as you mentioned, amplifier, a lot
Yes.
of shit creates a lot of shit, a lot of good stuff creates even more good stuff.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's exactly what we see. When you have friction and you introduce AI to sort of speed up the system, you're going to feel the pain of that friction more acutely. It's going to hurt more. You're going to notice it more. But like you said, when we have good systems that are allow for easy flow, fast flow, and focus and fast feedback, these are systems where AI can really amplify the good. And that's really what we want. And so it is an investment in improving all of those capabilities that you mentioned.
Also in DORA, you focus on ROI, return of investment in
hmm
AI assisted software development. Why?
Yes, this is, well, the reason that we focus on this is because everyone is asking this question right now. How do we make sure that we're getting a return out of these investments that we're making? And as we said sort of at the beginning of the show here, it's very difficult to know right now, but more and more organizations are thinking about this very acutely. So in our ROI of AI assisted software development, there's a couple of things that we do. I want to just be very clear right up front. We don't give a number. We don't answer the question, what is the ROI? It's not 3.6% or whatever. We don't
Everyone
give a
wants
number.
number.
Yes. But what we do instead is we attempt to give you a framework to help you think about where are you going to have costs? Where are you going to get real value back so that you can start to have conversations around the ROI of this and making sure that your investments are made in the right places so that they can have the best chance of giving you a return. The calculator or the report itself also comes with a calculator, and on Dora.dev, we have an interactive calculator that you can go and fill in the data for yourself. We look at things like how big is your engineering team, and specifically the engineers that are using AI. We look at how much does that AI cost you? We have to think about that. We also help you sort of think about this idea of, with AI, are you going to be able to ship more value? Are you shipping more features or fewer features when you're using AI? And of those features, how much of those actually provide value to your customers? Maybe in terms of revenue or customer satisfaction, the things that matter. But I think the most important part of our ROI study and report is the introduction or the discussion around the J curve of value realization. AI is not dissimilar to other practices that we introduce to new teams or newly introduced to teams, wherein if I bring something in to help with productivity, let's say it's AI, the almost immediate result we should expect is a dip in productivity. productivity usually goes down when you try something new. And then as you get better skilled at that new task and incorporate it into your systems, that's where productivity starts to pick up. So our calculator helps you plan for that J curve as well, that initial dip in productivity. And we see that being driven with AI largely by uh, uh, certainly a tuition cost, if you will. How do we learn about these new tools and incorporate them into our workflows? The verification tax that we talked about earlier, AI is generating lots of things. How do we verify that they're the right things? Whether that's code or an email or a document, doesn't matter. You have to verify that. And then finally, pipeline adaptation, right? As we've talked about, AI is going to help us generate a lot more code a lot faster. Are our pipelines built for that so that we can actually deliver that change into production?
You answered my pretty much next question about counter intuitive performance slowdown on AI, and I would add to it that it's pretty much if you start anything new, you're always gonna be slower in the beginning, or if you're trying to implement it, especially if you're trying to implement it correctly and not go on
Yes.
YOLO technique.
Yes, this is one of the things that's very useful for DORA having been around for a while, right? I mentioned this research program's been around for over a decade. We've seen a similar J curve of productivity with things like the cloud, with SRE practices. As you introduce SRE practices, reliability might dip and then it will recover and actually improve. So we've seen this pattern before, which is exciting. And of course, each time we see this pattern emerging, it's because there's a lot of excitement about a new way of working, and that's innovation, right? And that's exactly what we want across the entire industry.
Yeah, and I think software field is one of the ones which you have the fastest innovation because I have my partner, some other people around work in the different industries, and what was new for us 5 years ago, they adopting now, for example, very often. Oh,
Right.
automation, nice. Oh, cloud, let's go there. So it's even faster pace we have to live with and how fast it's changing because also you started I think it used to be every year DORA report. Right now you mentioned you put three since last autumn, so it's
Yes.
getting faster and faster. And even when you talk to developers, last year they were still writing code. Last half a year majority didn't write any code. Now suddenly we are talking about FinOps. Now we're talking about MCP. We're talking about agents working with each other, and so on. So it's changing faster, and adoption of it needs to go behind it.
Yes, absolutely. Even last year, what we found was 64% of our survey respondents said they'd never interacted with an agentic workflow. I know if we ask that question today, that number is going to decrease significantly. Almost everyone has worked with agents by now, right? This is changing, to your point, so rapidly. The technology is always advancing. It seems like every day there's a new way of working with AI. It's super exciting. At the same time, it is important to remember that, you know, as individuals and then even less so as teams and organizations, like it takes time to integrate new tools and new workflows into your daily work, into your practice. So it's easy to go and see what's on LinkedIn or on social media and feel like you're completely behind. But when you go and talk to some peers, some companies that look and are along the same path as you, you'll find that we're all learning. We're all struggling to keep up right now, and so that makes it both an exciting and invigorating time, and also a time filled with anxiety that maybe we're falling behind, and I'm not doing enough to keep up. I think it's worthwhile for all of us to take a deep breath, remember who are we building things for, right? And remember the well-being of the people on our team, and let's go deliver for our customers.
I think one thing we didn't mention as much is that, even with the speed, the focus for security comes even bigger, and how much, because suddenly, I have my grandparents using AI and I'm like, hey, don't put your personal information in
Yes.
the public models and so on. So, having this conversation with 80-year-old gonna be different. I mean, for example, with my brother who's 16 and anyone
Right.
in, all the generations in between, people who are more tech savvy and people who are out of it as well. So suddenly it's, as Google, search engine was 20, 25 years ago, something new and it's mainstream right now. The AI is getting, to not only people in tech, but it's becoming mainstream. And do you see how the security focus also changed over AI boom?
Yeah, I mean, security is always a big concern, and AI is, we're seeing all of the new capabilities coming out as well, and security vulnerabilities are not only being found much faster, but the industry is able to exploit them much faster, and we have brand new concerns. There are concerns around safety and privacy, all of these things that are really just changing. And to your point, people outside of tech, it does take a long time to adopt and adapt to these new technologies. I mean, I still see people that I know who go to google.com and in the search bar type in the URL that they're looking for, www.foo.com, and then click on the Google search results. Uh, there's better ways of doing that, but this is the muscle memory that they have. It works for them. They don't necessarily see the need for change. So now we introduce something new like AI, and to your point, yeah, it feels like magic. And of course, whatever I'm doing must be safe. They aren't thinking about the safety and security and the privacy of their data.
And I think one more thing we didn't mention as much was trust. With every new
Mhm.
technology comes trust into it, and how seriously you can take whatever it's producing. Uh,
Yeah, for sure.
do
This
you
is
have?
something that we looked into, yes. So we did look into this, and, trust is a really interesting concept as well. The way I think about trust is, when you're working with something or someone and you want to build trust with it, trust is really almost a measure, at least a measure in part, of is that thing meeting your expectations? So are your expectations aligned? I'm not surprised. I went to this thing and I expected this sort of result and I got this sort of result. That's a way to build trust. And the one of the best ways to build trust is to use a thing, right? So usage or adoption drives better trust. And also, the more you trust something, the more likely you are to use that thing. So usage and trust are kind of reinforcing, right? They reinforce one another. But we did ask people, how much do you trust the output of AI? And what we found was that about 30% of our survey respondents said that they trusted AI a little or not at all. So, very low levels of trust for those 30%. Now, interestingly, there were, off the top of my head, 4% of people who said they trust the output of AI a great deal. I don't think you should do that. I don't think you should trust the output of AI a great deal. About 46% of our respondents said they trust the output of AI somewhat. Somewhat. I'm team somewhat. I think those people are right.
Me too.
Somewhat is the right answer. So how do you work with a system that you only trust somewhat? Well, the way that you work with that system is that you have guardrails in place and you have checks in place, right? When we think about software development, we think about automated tests that we have in place. We think about code reviews. These are the verification steps that we have. We think about trust but verify. I trust it somewhat, but I need to verify the output. I need to verify that it's done what I've asked it to do and maybe not anything else. It's stayed specific to the task. We've certainly seen, I don't know if you've experienced this, Paulina, but ask AI to build something and make sure that all of the tests pass. And sometimes the AI will just comment out a test and say, yep,
Yeah.
all the tests are now passing.
Yeah, I had multiple times of it. Fix this test. Oh, we don't need it anymore.
Yes, yeah.
That's
Best way
what I
to
asked
fix it.
for.
Yeah, best way to fix it, just get rid of that test. Now your dashboard is green again.
Yeah, or
It's,
for example, performance test. Oh, doesn't fit under 1 second. Oh, let's put 5 or whatever. No, let's just increase the number. Now it fits. No.
yes, yes, yeah.
But coming with it, we also have a big discussion about junior engineers and the need for junior engineers, and that there's less, need for them, and how they should learn if we have AI for everything right now. What would you advise them, or what would you?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of things here. I certainly feel for junior engineers that are just coming into this. The pace of change is so fast right now, and we're always introducing new tooling and new ways of working, and AI is changing a lot of how we're approaching things. The reality is that there's always been new tools, always been new ways of working. And so, but I do think that the expense, and especially as AI is becoming more expensive, teams and organizations are really starting to focus on those returns, focus on those expenses. And of course, in many organizations, one of the biggest expenses that you have is for the personnel the headcount in your organization. And so teams are necessarily looking at how do we optimize that as well. And the idea that AI, it can do all of the tasks that a junior engineer can do. Um, and so maybe we don't hire junior engineers. Well, how do we have junior engineers in 10 years' time? If we didn't hire any junior engineers, like how do we get to senior engineers? You don't come out of college as a senior engineer, right? The only way that you get there is through practice, through doing the work. And so I will be honest, I've seen some organizations that are still very, very committed to their new grads program, still very committed to helping those juniors get roles, get experience, and become seniors. And at the same time, I've seen some organizations that have said, we'll never have to hire a junior again. Uh, I think that it's a difficult time for sure. I think that there are some positive signs, though. I think that when it comes to learning and getting experience, AI can be very good as a tutor and can be very good as a way to learn about a code base, learn about an operational issue in the moment. So I think that just-in-time learning can be very powerful if we use the AI that way. I also take some comfort in knowing that I don't know. I remember when Snapchat came out, Paulina, and I'm old enough that I still don't know how to use Snapchat, but my children do. So maybe there's something to that as well. Maybe some of these junior engineers that are just leaving school now, or the next generation of junior engineers coming up will have always had these AI tools, and maybe they'll be better at using these tools to solve problems than some of our more experienced or more seasoned software engineers will be. So I think it's a challenging time. There's no other way to say that. Uh, but there are some glimmers of hope. And I think that I mean that's where I tend to sort of spend a lot of my energies in those places where there is hope.
Yeah, definitely. And to be honest, I can see, the movement which you're talking about, that, younger generations get anything new faster, and they are more native to it. Versus older, as you mentioned, some people, put www link in Google to being able to click it, when the others don't even, talk to it. They do everything via Siri or yeah, whatever phone you have. So there is a change, and they adapt to the new times more naturally, I think, as well. That's one
Right.
thing. But from the other side, unless everyone started somewhere, so you need to still, it doesn't matter if they're gonna be faster with it or not, or they're gonna be, be better in adoption. They probably gonna be, but you still need to give them the chance, even if they are, because they don't gonna have 30, 40 years of experience. And sure, they might be better with using the tools, but there's a lot of stuff which you are not gonna use only by interacting with AI, especially working for the bigger organizations.
Absolutely, absolutely. And when cloud came along, it lowered the barrier to entry to being able to build and operate new systems. I think AI has come along and has again lowered the barrier to entry to start a new thing. You can start a small business and maybe grow that into a larger business. There is a lot of opportunity here for sure.
Yeah, the number of vibe coders increased exponentially.
Yes,
But
yes.
the issue is that not everyone wanna learn, when they do it. So they're not willing to know, oh, hey, you need to think about security, multi-tenancy, or other stuff which comes with it. So you're very
Yeah.
involved into community work as well. What keeps you going with it? Because you're very active. One thing I know is part of your job, but another thing, if you wouldn't like it, you wouldn't do it for so many years.
Yes, I do love the community aspects of what we get to do. I think that especially in a time of heavy innovation like with AI, the best learning that we can do is collectively as an industry, as a community. We learn together. I think that one of the unfortunate things about AI that I do see today is that I can do a whole lot more than I could by myself. AI just enables me to get more done without having to talk to other people, and I think that's one of its that's a significant flaw in AI. I think that we are better when we work together. I don't come from a traditional computer science background, and the way that I became a professional in this space is through the community, through working with others and learning from others. And I hope that I can give that back by helping foster the community spirit that we have across this industry. And so even in Dora, we have a little community, Dora.community. In this community, we've got thousands of practitioners that are coming together and learning with each other and from each other about how do we take the research insights from Dora and put them into practice within our own teams, within our own organizations. And as much as I love doing the research and being part of the research team, the thing that brings me even more joy is seeing that research put into practice and how teams are actually leveraging it. That's what's super exciting to me. And so, yes, I do spend a lot of my time in the community so that I can learn from others. I can see patterns that are emerging within the community. It helps feed our research goals each year, and as we continue our ongoing research, we learn from the community and let that help us guide what we're going to go research next.
Yeah, and with more automation, we get out of the home less and less. You can order food, you can do everything online, you can buy apartment online, you can talk to people online, you can talk to AI, you can play with bot and so on. So I think the
Yes,
community kind of pushing you also to actually meet people, especially if you work remotely, work for yourself, or where majority of us is also very often.
absolutely.
I have last round of rapid fire questions, and
Okay.
we will be closing. So let's end with quick few questions. If you can answer straight away what's on your mind. What is most overrated AI buzzword right now?
Token maxing.
One engineering metric people misuse constantly.
Uh, Tokens.
Habit that separates strong engineering teams from struggling ones.
Communication.
Copilot style assistants or autonomous agents, which do you think will become more impactful long term?
Autonomous agents.
What's one AI tool you gen- genuine? Okay, I'm not a native, sorry. Genuinely use regularly.
Uh, I use um, Gemini and anti-gravity all the time.
One book every engineering leader should read.
Accelerate.
And what's one prediction about AI assisted software development that most people would disagree with today?
That we are over focused on building and under focused on operating.
Great, thank you. So
All
for
right.
the
Thank you, Paulina.
last round, where people can find you, where people can, find your work and your team's work. And if
Yes,
there's anything
absolutely.
else you want to add, then
All right. Well, thank you. This has been super fun. You can find me online. Probably LinkedIn is the best place. I'm Nathen Harvey, and my first name is spelled a little bit uniquely. It's Nathen. That makes it easier to find me. And then you can find all of the work that the DORA team does at dora.dev. And that includes the quick check that will help you quickly assess your software delivery performance and that AI ROI calculator, as well as all of our reports over the years. And then join the conversation at dora.community. Thank you so much for having me, Paulina.
thank you a lot. Great conversation. And people should learn more about DORA if it was 10 years ago, now, or even in the future. You always give a lot of insightful stuff and the community which comes with it as well.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it for today's edition of the Bits and Bolts with Paulina. Did you like what you heard? Of course you do. Tell your friends.